Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we take a closer look at issues surrounding the U.S. military and national security. In Illinois, we meet a man spearheading support groups for an underserved category of military spouses, husbands. And in Virginia, we learn the history of a former family home in the middle of the CIA's headquarters. But we begin with a group of veterans who say they're not able to receive desperately needed medical benefits. During the Cold War, service members in Nevada were exposed to radiation as part of a mission so top secret, the military still doesn't acknowledge it, even in veteran service records. CBS Chicago's Dave Savini speaks with some of the men involved about their health struggles and the fight for justice.
It was the mid-1980s. Mark Eli was in his 20s, a physically fit Air Force technician inspecting secretly obtained Soviet fighter jets. Their engines roaring inside hidden hangars called hush houses.
When you're at that moment, everything's shaking and your hands are shaking and your eyes are shaking and your brain is shaking.
The work was part of a classified mission in the Nevada desert, 140 miles outside of Las Vegas at the Tonopah Test Range, sometimes referred to as Area 52. The mission was so under wraps, Eli had to sign this non-disclosure agreement.
Upholding the national interest was more important than my own life.
That's not just talk.
The loss of my health.
Eli, now 63 and living in Naperville, Illinois, is confronting life-threatening consequences.
It scarred my lungs, and I got cyst on my liver.
From the radiation, he says, he was exposed to there.
I started having lipomas, tumors inside my body that I started having removing. My lining of my bladder was shed.
For decades, the U.S. government conducted nuclear bomb tests near Area 52. According to a federal environmental assessment from 1975, those tests scattered toxic and radioactive materials nearby.
So someone made a decision that your lives and the risk was worth it for our country.
Yes.
All these years later, his service records include many assignments, but not the mission inside Tonopah Test Range, which means he can't prove he was ever there.
Cover up?
Right. That's right. There's this slogan people say, deny, deny until you die. It's kind of true here.
And the only reason why it's becoming known now is because of all the illnesses.
It was because of all the illnesses.
Dave Crete says he also worked at the same site as a military police officer. He has breathing issues, including chronic bronchitis, and even had to have a tumor removed from his back. He spent the last 8 years tracking down hundreds of other veterans who worked where he did.
So you've seen bladder cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, kidney cancer, tumors, lymphomas, blood diseases.
All kinds of cancers.
The federal government's 1975 environmental assessment acknowledged toxic chemicals in the area, but said stopping work ran against the national interests, and the costs are small and reasonable for the benefits received.
What does it do to you to see all these other men and women suffering?
How many people they hurt?
$25.7 billion worth of federal assistance has helped other government workers, mainly employees of the Department of Energy.
Go on down to where it gets to the 1/3.
Who were stationed in the same area and are now sick.
Look for.
But these benefits don't apply to Air Force veterans like Crete and Eli.
It makes me incredibly mad, and it hurts me too, because they're supposed to have my back. I had theirs, and I want them to have mine.
A betrayal, he says, by the very government he served.
We continue with another push for equity in our armed services. While U.S. military policy allows active duty troops to continue to serve if they become disabled through the loss of a limb, it forbids those with similar physical disabilities from enlisting. Natalie Morales meets a woman in Washington state who believes she's ready and able to serve despite her use of a prosthetic leg.
28-year-old Hannah Vankera is everything the military desires. Motivated, physically fit, patriotic.
I believe in our country, and I want to serve it.
Except for this.
My leg, I've never counted it as part of my identity. I'm just Hannah who happens to be missing a leg.
A rare birth defect forced an amputation when she was just 10 months old.
Can you walk for the camera?
And she hasn't slowed down since.
We did swim team, volleyball, rock climbing. I'll surf with it, hike with it.
And you've never felt any limitations because of your amputation?
Never.
While her amputation hasn't stopped her at all, the military has. She was rejected by the Navy.
The subject applicant does not meet established physical standards.
Active duty troops who lose limbs can still serve, but for those seeking to enlist, current absence of a foot is automatically disqualifying.
Hannah Vankera's desire to get into the military comes at a time when recruitment numbers have reached their lowest levels since the Vietnam War.
Our recruitment is suffering, and there are plenty of people with the right heart to serve that can't.
3, 2, go.
Vankera is in training to once again try and enlist by seeking a medical waiver to join the Washington Air National Guard. She is also a full-time ER nurse, often on her feet for 12-hour shifts, and wants to continue doing her job while in uniform.
What better opportunity for someone who just lost a limb to see a nurse that says, hey, buck up, I'm an amputee too.
Her father, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Vankera, is a retired Air Force flight surgeon.
You're her dad, but speaking as somebody who also knows what she needs to do her job, what do you think she adds?
She adds a joy. Her middle name is Joy. And she fits it. She perseveres.
Alex Gates is Vankera's prosthetist and says medical progress has been met by antiquated thinking.
The rule was written back when prosthetics were made out of wood and leather.
Does she have any limitations as far as you're aware of?
I think she's more able-bodied than most people that we come in contact with every day.
For the military, they would say the concern is if you're a liability, and also would you be able to deploy easily,
Yes.
right?
That is their overarching concern. I'm not asking that we ignore disability and pretend it doesn't exist. Rather that we do not ignore ability.
Her goal, break through closed doors by opening minds.
Coming up, being a military husband has unique challenges, and a group called Macho Spouse wants to help. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. The U.S. military is more inclusive than ever. About 20% of current service members are women. And as more women and LGBTQ people enlist, another demographic is also growing: male spouses of those in active duty. I recently met the founder of a support group called Macho Spouse, who's helping to connect members of an often overlooked military community. You've been together how many years?
24.
24. Better get it right.
On a summer day in 2001, a dating profile caught Dana Pape's eye.
He's just looking for someone to hang out, watch college football, drink beer, and eat wings. And I'm like, oh crap, that sounds like me.
From our first date, I think we talked every day.
Did you know she was like, no?
No, because what she said,
Oh my God, this is such a lie.
it is not a lie. What she said is that she was a professional in the medical industry or something like that. And I'm thinking she's a doctor.
But in the Air Force, it was considered part of the medical field. It was aerospace physiology, which fell within the medical field.
And the large corporation was the
I
federal
didn't
government.
I didn't know what kind of creepers were going to be out there.
Systems hot, 3.
Dana was actually in the Air Force, training pilots to handle the effects of flight on the body.
You had these very burly young guys. They had to salute her, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Over the years, the military played a large role in their partnership and ultimately their marriage, dictating where and when they'd move.
I started looking around at all the other military spouses going, hey, I'm the only guy. Every website that I went to, it was great material, but it was for women, by women. So I then started Googling male military spouse. I didn't find anything.
So he set out to make a documentary about military husbands.
The first person I interviewed, within 5 minutes, I knew there was a weight lifted off my shoulder.
Wow.
I just knew I wasn't alone.
What was the weight?
The weight was the slowly building depression, anxiety, isolation of being a male spouse.
Men make up 14% of the country's 500,000 military spouses, but 48% of military spouse suicides.
In the beginning, it was stressful.
Chris felt like he had to do something, so he scrapped his documentary plans and started Macho Spouse, a video series and support group for men married to service members.
What's up, man?
Macho Spouse has helped Sergio Rodriguez and Jared Knight stay in touch. Both are veterans themselves, married to active duty service members. At a coffee shop just outside Chicago, we met those two friends and fellow spouse Josh Green to get their takes.
I was at an event. There were 400 spouses. I was one of 2 males. Everybody got a raffle when they registered, and when my number ended up getting called, it was a breast pump.
Wow.
And most organizations say, oh, we want to bring more male spouses out, but there's very little thought in terms of how do we do that.
The vast majority of spouses are women.
Mm-hmm.
So why should we go the extra mile for men?
There are mental health implications. We also have our own issues that we have to deal with.
The men want to change not just how people outside the military see them, but how other military spouses speak on social media.
Do you feel as though some women feel unsafe with the prospect of men in their group?
Well, there's that as well. But at the end of the day, we're spouses supporting our active duty member.
Lack of a warm welcome, Rodriguez says, can impact kids on base too.
You know, you see some of these posts where it's like, hey ladies, we're moving in, can we have a play date with my kids? If I was to do that, how welcoming it would be. Well, would they really attend if I'm like, hey ladies, I'm new into the neighborhood with my 2-year-old, can you guys want to do a park date? Would they leave?
Yeah.
Would they?
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
I mean, has it happened?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What would you say to men out there who's still struggling?
Reach out. You can't be included at the table if you don't come for a seat at the table.
A realization Chris Pape had early on.
I felt I was I was alone, but I wasn't. The first time that I got my email, a first email from somebody I'd never met before, and it was, Chris, I just wanted to say thank you. I think you saved my marriage. I started to cry a little bit. I was because I'm sitting alone in my stupid little basement in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm like, somebody's listening, But it's a heck of a feeling.
You're getting a little emotional.
I'm getting a little choked up, yeah. Aww. Because there's no better feeling than to help somebody.
Mission accomplished.
Ahead, we tour a century-old home rich with family history and surrounded by national security secrets. That story is next. We close our show with an exclusive look inside the CIA's secretive headquarters in McLean, Virginia. The oldest structure on the campus is a cozy family home inhabited before the intelligence community built their operations around it in the late 1950s. Olivia Gages learns the surprising history and continued relevance of the former residence.
When buying a house on 30 wooded acres in Northern Virginia, the last thing you might expect to get is a nosy neighbor. But when Margaret Scattergood and Florence Thorne moved into their new home, they got even more than they bargained for. An entire campus full of spies.
So this is actually the front entrance of the house.
Correct. CIA officer Janelle Nasis has been the home's historian.
We tried to make sure that we didn't impede or encroach on their life too much. We tried to consider them sort of a part of our organization while letting them live their lives very separately at the same time.
The women lived in the house for over a decade until the U.S. government came knocking.
This is the headquarters of the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States government.
One of the reasons we really liked this property was because it's got the Potomac on one side that kind of cuts you off, again, for that safety, surrounded by nature, and they really liked how close it is to DC.
Back to Margaret and Florence. I understand that they actually caught wind first that the CIA was considering buying this land and reached out. Can you tell me about that?
They made sure that they got ahead of it. They met with people from the US government and created a deal, basically, a plan where they would sell their estate, but they would get to live here. And so, as crazy as it sounds, we had this family, these two women and sometimes their family members, living on our secure compound.
Now, who is this?
This is me and Aunt Marge.
Nick Blanchet, the great-grandnephew of Margaret Scattergood, was one of them. In his 30s, he lived with his Aunt Marge on the property.
Do you have a favorite memory?
Yes, I really enjoyed tea time, which was sherry time for Aunt Marge. She liked to have her glass of sherry.
And he recalled intimate family moments.
This is your wedding.
Yeah, and Aunt Marge, we were helping her get to her seat.
All with the CIA right next door.
It was a beautiful place, completely private, but I think the CIA could tell what was going on.
What made you think that?
Because of the CIA.
Now, it was a different time. They weren't spying on them?
No. We have officers who still remember Margaret and talk of her, and it was just friendships.
A committed Quaker, Scattergood helped refugees in France during World War I, and then crisscrossed the U.S. in a Ford Model T. After she met Thorne, the two fought for workers' rights at the American Federation of Labor.
Florence is really interesting in the fact that the work that she did at the AFL actually led to legislation for Social Security. These were two women who, sought out not just adventure, but making the world better.
After Thorne passed away in 1973, family lore says Scattergood may have opened her doors to political refugees known as Sandinistas from Nicaragua, where at the same time CIA was covertly backing an opposing group, the Contras.
There are rumors that Sandinistas showed up at the CIA. We don't have any records of them actually coming onto the compound, but it wouldn't surprise me if Margaret was helping people that she thought needed help.
When Scattergood passed away in 1986, CIA officially took over the house and its grounds.
On occasion, on beautiful days like today, folks can come out here.
For about a decade, CIA Deputy Director David Cohen told us, it went to the dogs.
It became the location for our canine unit. They had obstacle course outside, and then in the house we would plant fake explosives for the dogs to identify and find.
The house fell into disrepair until a senior officer intervened and had it renovated from top to bottom. Upstairs, what used to be bedrooms now look more like boardrooms. A family kitchen, now fit for professionals. And some things stayed original. The grand central banister, the wrought iron windows, and a secret little spot in the basement.
We're pretty sure that this foundation was actually a home that existed before it and probably was built in the late 19th century.
In 2004, the house was fully reopened and renamed the Scattergood Thorne Conferencing Center.
This one is locked.
This is the only locked door at the Scattergood Conferencing Center.
There is one door, door number 3, that we couldn't peek behind.
Right.
Can you tell me what's behind that door?
What you might imagine.
I can imagine lots of things.
No, what's behind that door is a computer workstation. There's a terminal where you can get online if you need to.
It's not a sprawling situation room that
Afraid
connects...
not, yeah.
In 2005, it convened every living director to mark a symbolic departure of the official title of Director of Central Intelligence.
So you had everyone from President George Bush 41 to the current director at the time. And the room we're sitting in right now was the main reception area for the dinner.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was used as an office by then Deputy Director Vaughn Bishop. Today, for seminars with Director William Burns and events for an unknown number of mystery visitors.
Well, I can't confirm any particular meeting, but I can tell you we use this house frequently for foreign visitors who come to the agency.
Like who?
Many different folks.
Even going back a ways, you can't mention any names?
Not right now.
While most of its guests and events today remain top secret, the house stands as a reminder of the trailblazing women whose names and legacies it still bears.
What do you think Margaret and Florence would think about what happens here today if they knew about it?
I think Margaret and Florence would appreciate the fact that the CIA took such care of the house first and foremost. I would hope that they would appreciate the human connections that we try to make here, and that everyone here has the intentions of making the world safer.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news, stream us right here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.